Hey guys.
How's it going?
Welcome.
I feel like we missed out on the buckets.
I thought about going like Jimmy Fallon and letting you guys compete. That would have been fun,
That
huh?
would've been fun.
Maybe afterwards. Okay, so I have a question to start off with you, Skate, because you're sitting closest. So I would like to know more about your background because you've had an amazing career as an athlete and now as a professional. So was there ever a moment when you were a kid that you knew that soccer was going to be your path?
Did I know it was going to be my path? I always enjoyed it. I was a super, very hyperactive, still pretty hyper to this day, hyperactive kid. So my mom enrolled me in every sport possible just to try to wear me out at night, and it still didn't work. But I fell in love with the game when I was probably 7. I remember playing and not wanting to leave the field and wanting to be out there I had a bunch of cousins that were all guys that they actually lived next door. It makes me sound like a total country bum, and I was. But as I grew, I started realizing that soccer was, it was my family, it was my network, and I loved it. And then when I broke my neck in 2006, it was this massive reality check of what next? Who else are you? What's your identity outside of sport? And I divorced the game and left, and went and worked in the venture capital world, and actually was in South Africa doing some nonprofit work. And I had a moment there where the game was brought back to me, and it was a bone-chilling moment. And it was I saw the power of soccer on a global level and how it really does change people's lives. And I realized at that moment it didn't matter how far I ran, the game found me again, and I found the game, and here I am.
Wow.
Still in it.
That's awesome. I love that. So Mike, similar question for you.
Yep.
So was there ever a point when you were a kid that you just thought, okay, design, photography, creative endeavors are my path? Is there a moment you can tell us about?
I wish I could say I knew that was the path and I had this vision from day one, but I really didn't. I just kind of fell into it. Early on, I was always really creative, and my mother introduced me to pastels, and my uncle into charcoal drawing. So I was always into creating and drawing, and then I got into short story writing when I was in middle school, and then I got into music and played in a band and was recording and writing music, and then I went to school, and I realized they had this design program, and it kind of married. When I was with the band, I was doing the flyers and logo work and stuff like that. So I kind of found a little niche there and fell in love with it. And it didn't click that I could get into sports with design until I actually ended up in sports. I think my portfolio project when I graduated college was a New York Giants CD-ROM. So I kind of put the connection there a little bit. But I still didn't know that there was a path that I could carve out a niche to design in sports until I got a call from one of the guys I went to school with at Full Sail, and he was working for an agency in Chicago that was doing pro sports web design, and they were about to bring on the Giants as one of their clients. So he reached out to me, and I ended up getting that job, and that was kind of how I connected sports and design. It was never on the radar, and I fell into it, and I've been there ever since, and I wouldn't change a thing.
So what was it like when you got a call from the Falcons to join the team? Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, so when I was with the agency, the dot-com bubble burst, and the Falcons were one of my clients, so I had a relationship with them a little bit. And then I was unemployed doing freelance work for about a year, and then the Falcons and the Lions called in the same week, so I had interviewed with both. And I was really debating where I wanted to go, and I ended up choosing Atlanta, and I wouldn't change a thing. I've been here. This is going to be my 17th season.
Wow. Okay, Skate, so back to you and your story. You've had a lot of resilience and perseverance and overcoming that injury. I'm interested to know, what did you apply from the skill of the game, what you learned in performing as an athlete, to your professional career?
Oh, man. That's a good one. I think I've always grown up in a team environment. So everything I do, it's my team at work. Everything is team-oriented, and knowing and understanding what your role is and doing it to the best of your ability, and then having the trust in my teammates still, to do their job and to do it really well, and then everything kind of comes together. But there's also a confidence aspect, too, of knowing who you are, what you stand for. It's the same thing, sport transcends into your professional life. So for me, the confidence aspect and the teamwork aspect are two big things. And also, it's just, I like to win. I'm not fun to be around if I lose. So the competitive aspect of it. And so wanting to be the best, striving to be the best from, the team aspect. And it's been really fun, for just, Atlanta as a whole, with watching the game grow here and, smashing records. So that's, I think, for all of us, the competitive spirit, the team that we have. So
that's great. Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, because I'm fascinated with, how did you guys do it? What was the game behind the game to get the Atlanta United franchise launched? It didn't exist. There was nothing. And it seems like all of a sudden, even in this crowd, there was more United fans than Falcons fans. So how did you, from scratch, create that fandom?
You want to go first?
Sure. I think from day one, we just connected with people that were passionate about soccer and found those people and found ways to connect with them authentically in the city, and not make them come to events that we were putting on, but go to the events that they were already going to be at, going to all the World Cup watch parties and engaging with fans there, and kind of just bonding around the love of the game first, and not trying to force our brand onto anybody.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. And knowing that Atlanta is such a global city, it's a melting pot, and soccer is the world's game. So there's not a better place, to grow the game and to root it here in Atlanta. And leveraging the spirit of those avid fans. I think people here were hungry. They were hungry for, something that they could own. And so it doesn't matter, the story that we tell, it doesn't matter if you're from Atlanta, you're from somewhere else, you love soccer, you don't love soccer. The story that we tell weaves all of that together and unites them around the pitch. So, for us, leveraging the spirit of those avid fans, like
Yep.
Benford said, and then, connecting emotionally with people on, the game fits Atlanta.
Were you guys surprised? Did you expect it to take off like it did, or were you totally surprised?
We were joking backstage. I still don't think people are going to show up at the games. I stand there every match day, and then people on my team skate. The game is sold out. There's 71,000 tickets that are out the door. I'm like, they're still not going to show up. So, there was a moment, the first game at Bobby Dodd. I was standing there, and I was really, really excited. It was a bummer. Yeah, you couldn't open it, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but Bobby Dodd has got so much history behind it. So there's, to me, first time I walked in the stadium, you see all the metal benches and the sounds that I know, vibrating off of that. I knew it was going to be an incredible atmosphere. But I was staying outside, and I remember the march coming down, and I just stood there, and it was this sea of red and black coming in, and it was a chilling moment for me. And it's still every match day. Shoot, even on a Tuesday morning, I'll be at a coffee shop, and I'll see someone walk in an Atlanta United T-shirt, and it's, holy smokes, they know what it is.
Yeah, a lot of people do. Yeah.
Yeah, I see a hat over there, so I'll give props to the guy over there.
So I wanted to know more about the process to create the identity. I'm a branding guy. There's a lot of people here that were interested in the little things like the logo and the name and the colors. So can you give us more of what that experience was like the progression of it and how some of those decisions were made?
Yep. So early on, when we first came out, it was MLS Atlanta 2017. We didn't even have a name or a team yet. So we started with some initial type marks, and I remember when we were working on the logo, some of the first things that we did ended up getting rejected because it looked too much like a logo, and we didn't want things to feel like this was a permanent mark and this was the permanent name of the team. So we kind of refined things a little bit and kind of pulled back. And even in that process, the management wanted it to be the Falcons colors, still red, black, and silver. And selfishly, our creative team just begged, can we change the silver to gold just so we have another color to work with? And our CMO at the time said, I don't think I'm going to like it, but you can show it to us anyway. And we did, and we ended up getting it sold through. So that's how we got the gold into everything. And then we ended up starting working with Adidas. Once we had the name was kind of generated by fans through a survey and submitted and voted up. And then working with Adidas, we started to kind of build our story and develop the 5 pillars of character, and that's what the 5 stripes represent. And then we were debating between the crest, kind of a circular crest badge, or like a more traditional soccer crest. And we kind of leveraged the city seal from Atlanta and kind of went with that circular shape to tie back to the city a little bit. And using the strong, kind of dominant A referred back to the strength of the city. So we wanted to always kind of pull inspiration from the city of Atlanta and let that kind of drive our vision.
That's great. That's fun to hear the backstory on that and how decisions were made. Was Arthur Blank involved in that?
Yeah, he was absolutely involved. Not in the weeds, but he typically lets the experts do what he's hired them to do. But when he's got opinions, you know.
So he didn't pull out a pen and pad and start drawing what he wanted?
No,
okay,
no.
That's good. Good to know.
We're lucky like that.
Yeah.
Management lets creatives be creatives.
That's great. Okay, Skate. So similar type question, but I'm interested in one of the things that's different about soccer culture than American football is the chants, right? Like people are constantly standing, the fan section's going nuts. You don't really sit at the game. How did the chants get created? Because they didn't exist 2 years ago, it seems like, but now there's these things that everyone knows and they all scream and say. So did the fans create those chants, or were they created officially from the club?
Well, is there anybody in here that's in a registered supporter group by any chance? Anyone? Awesome. Okay, good. Saw some hands. Otherwise, that would have been really awkward. It's the global game. There's this unique culture that's almost intimidating to a casual fan. Soccer can be intimidating, but the supporter culture, that drives the energy within a match. And so when we actually started, our first, call it our coming out party, was actually 2 years ago, two or 3 years ago this weekend, so Inman Park Festival. And we participated in the parade there. And part of it was, we had a couple different, supporter groups that came to it and joined us in this march. And I think at the time we had 6 or 7 full-time staff. And so it would have been pretty awkward for 6 or 7 full-time staff to be walking in this parade. But, the supporters and some of the founding members joined us. And, chants and cheers you see them no matter what, country you're in at a soccer match. And they evolve, and every group has their own. And what's incredible and it's spectacular about our supporter groups is on match day, you can't tell one group from the other. They literally unite behind the 5 stripes and chant and cheer together. And you can't tell someone who's in a recognized supporter group, from just a regular season ticket holder there. And that's what makes that atmosphere incredible. So from a chant and cheer perspective, they are created by the fans. And we might, be hanging out with them and try to, help a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's fan-driven, and that's what makes this brand so special, is we really do listen to the fans, encourage the fans, and help drive that message.
That's interesting. How do you balance that? Like, how do you have official rituals like the Golden Spike? From my perspective, seems like that was something that was more like officially club generated. How do you balance like an official idea versus a fan suggested idea, and how do you decide which one to really promote and push out there?
It's like steering a ship, a giant ship, so, the current is going to steer you one way, and sometimes you might have to fight it and push back the other way, but slowly. But at the end of the day, you're just trying to steer to get to the ultimate destination, which is create, the best soccer club in the world, whether you're a fan or a player. Some of the traditions, yes, were club-driven, like the Golden Spike. I'm sure many people in here know the story behind Atlanta, and they say that, if that first railroad the hub hadn't been built here in Atlanta, we would just be another frontier town. It wouldn't be what it is today. And so me not being from Atlanta and learning the story about Atlanta, and when you're trying to build this brand of Atlanta United, it's really important to understand the city's history and where we are. And there is this, this spirit from, the original kind of settlers of Atlanta that decided to take it beyond just, that one point that connected to the Midwest. It was, let's connect all these little other towns here and around, milepost 1, and take that initiative. And so for us, the spike, is the Atlanta people driving in that railroad. We don't have, it's kind of hard to make like Thomas the Train, like some strong, sexy symbol. It could be real challenging. So, the spike, there's something there about, it's blood, sweat, and tears. And the ritual of everyone signing it before the match, to be honest, the club wouldn't be what it is without the fans. So having them be able to put their stamp on it every single match, to me, there's a lot of chilling moments I've had over the last few years. But, having them show up, the players are signing it, Tata signing it, fans sign it, Darren signs it, Arthur signs it, and then when it gets hammered in, pre-match, to me, it's a really significant moment. And then at the end of the game, when the fans are actually the ones that can vote on who the player of the match is, when he comes up, and, so you start the game with the fans, you end the game with the fans. It brings it full circle.
I love it. That's great. All right, Mike, question about the Falcons. Yep. So you oversee the creative services for the Falcons, for the United, for the Benz. What's it like crossing over? Tell us what the unique differences are for each group and how you think about it as you oversee it and creative direct it.
Let's hear this one.
I always say that I've got the best of both worlds where we're at, because working in-house, you live and breathe the brands and understand them beyond what any agency possibly can. But you also, Mike, being that we're working on multiple brands, you've got the variety of being able to stay fresh. You just happen to have 3 of the coolest clients, in the world in your little agency. So it's fun kind of being in both places, kind of that in-house, but still a little bit of the agency vibe. And there's this kind of push and pull on all of the brands a little bit, where you're always everything you do, you're trying to do the next thing a little bit better. And whether it's across brands or within a singular brand. So it's almost like you're playing chess with yourself all the time, trying to beat yourself and one-up yourself with everything that you do. So it's super rewarding and challenging, kind of being able to jump around a little bit and kind of keep things fresh and try things that maybe the NFL wouldn't necessarily let you do. Where you're able to get those ideas out on United side, and then when you see success with it on the United side, the Falcon side might say, "Oh, we need to do a little bit more of that." So there's that kind of constant push and pull where they kind of sharpen each other quite often.
So you mentioned freshness, and I'm curious to know, how do you guys stay inspired? Like, how do you keep innovating, thinking about what the next idea is, either on the direct design, photography, creative side, or thinking about fan engagement? What inspires you and keeps you thinking about, what's next and what's a fresh idea? What inspires you?
I try to completely disconnect, and I'll go through phases where I unfollow everything and anything that's sports related in all of my social channels, and I'll like in the end of next month, I'm going to China for 2 weeks for a photography trip, and I promise you I won't shoot any football, soccer, or be visiting any stadiums while I'm out there. So I try and immerse myself in other areas that are completely different than what I'm doing in my day-to-day, and find inspiration there and figure out how we can take ideas and things that stand out in other cultures and put a twist on it and bring it back into the world of sports.
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's having that competitive mentality, but then also having, being a risk taker. I think I'm going to win our bet. We had a bet backstage, part of my vocabulary I'm about to use, but trying shit. Like, that's what our mentality is. And if you're afraid to do that, how can you ever succeed? So I think, for me, that's what I do, is challenge myself each and every day. How can we and I have a rule internally, and it's hard to measure percentages, like with, I just say you got to do everything 7% better every single time you do it. And so for us, is it taking an idea that we've seen be successful somewhere else and then making it our own? Is it trying something totally new? But as long as we're moving the needle 7% in every single thing that we do, we're going to continue to grow and evolve.
So with that mindset, you're bound to make mistakes somewhere, right?
We fall on our face all the time.
So I would love to hear what have been some of those big failures.
So we had a big blunder on the Falcons side a couple years ago when, I think it was 2014, we went to London. And we were doing some infographics that kind of showed our path where we flew from Atlanta to Baltimore and then from Baltimore over to London. And during the course of resizing some of those graphics, one of the layers didn't get grouped and didn't resize. So we posted a graphic that said London, but it showed that we were going to Spain. And yeah, and it was only up for about 10 minutes before we caught it and pulled it down, but it went viral. It was on CNN, it was national news. The headline was "Falcons don't know where London is," and this happened. It was literally my 40th birthday in London when I'm sitting in a bus going to a photo shoot when we got the notice, and it was one of those oh shit moments. Wait, maybe you
I won
tied.
the bet, though.
And I honestly didn't know if this was I'm getting fired on my 40th birthday in London and having to figure my way back to the States. But everything worked out. I think one of the big things that we learned from there is online proofing. We're not email proofing things as much anymore, and it's keeping everything in a central repository. And stuff goes viral fast. It was up less than 10 minutes before we figured it out, and it made national media. So always be proofing.
That wins. That wins. We fail every day, but my mentality is we try not to remember those things and try not to harp on them. You just make sure you don't ever do that again. There's early on, and going back to the Golden Spike in traditions, there was a game at Bobby Dodd Stadium, and it's crazy to call it a tradition, and you've only been around, really, this is the second season, but it has caught on, and it's a special moment. But you mess those up early, and you really look like Muppets. And there was a game where Dale Murphy from the Braves was supposed to hit the spike. And I remember they were like, introducing Dale Murphy. There's no Dale Murphy. Like, where is Dale? Guys, and I had seen him earlier, so I know he's in the building. One reason or another, he was not down there where he was supposed to be. So we introduced Dale Murphy, and he is not there. And I can't, honestly, I think I blacked out. Like, I don't remember who hit the spike. I just remember thinking, oh, Lord. And it was a similar moment to you. And I think it was like our third or fourth home game. We look like a bunch of Muppets. Somehow we pulled it off, and I honestly don't remember what we did. If someone even hit the spike, I have no idea. But it's one of those things where, you fail, you learn from it, and you move on.
I think, too, with the United side, we had the national anthem issue at Bobby Dodd one time. Oh, yeah, that was an
amazing one.
And that was an experience that went viral for a good reason, because the supporters and the fans kind of took everything over when the audio system wasn't working.
Was anyone at that match? Oh, wonderful.
Wow.
One shining moment right there.
But that turned into a success.
His mic went out. Shinhwa Hawk, I always say his name wrong, so I'm sorry. But he was out there, and he's got this magical voice. No sounds. No sounds. So there he is out there, like his first time he'd ever sang the anthem. I was so excited he was coming. No sounds. And to this day, now, if you go to one of our matches, all the fans start singing the anthem, and it's pretty powerful. So that's an example of a failure turning into something that lasts, luckily it's not a failure every single time now, but, it turned into another powerful unifying moment.
Wow, I love that. Okay, so one last question, then we're going to let some folks out here ask questions. So Mike, what do you hope in 10 years or so is true about the Falcons?
I hope I've got 10 rings,
Hey, they got a good draft.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, maybe another question. What was it like? Because you're so invested in the performance of the teams, right? So I'd imagine wins or losses really weigh on you and your teams. What was the Super Bowl like? You made it to the ultimate.
You're gonna put me on the spot with that? No, it was the most gratifying and most disappointing moment of my career, all in one day. And I remember sitting on the bus on the way back to the hotel after the game and just going through my cell phone and all the text messages. And you can just see the cadence of the game just in the text messages. Oh my God, you guys are winning the Super Bowl. You're finally getting a ring. The Lombardi Trophy's coming to Atlanta. Oh my God, what's happening? Oh, Atlanta always does this to us. What's going? And it just kind of transcended down. So it was really tough. And then we had this really huge, elaborate post-game party. So you go back to this post-game party that's got all these like Circus Soleil performers and this really cool stuff going on, but it's like you attended a funeral. People were just there because they had to be, trying to grab something to eat and get out. So it was tough to swallow, and that flight home was not easy. But I remember sitting on the flight, we had signed some United players, so we had no time to really sit and stew on the loss, because we got back and had to jump right into United, because United season was just about to start, and there were some signings going on that we were working on the flight, literally back from the Super Bowl, working on kicking.
Wow. So there's no time to even really mourn.
There wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to dive right into United. So
That's why you watch
helped.
sport. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why we love sport. It's for the highs and for the lows. The highs make you, it's this euphoric feeling, and the lows just make you hungry to come back and watch again. But that's the relationship we have with sports, is the up and down. So it's part of it.
Yeah. So what about for you and the United? What do you hope is true in 20 years for the club?
That we're the best club in the world.
Love it. That's great. Well, I'm so glad that these folks have joined us. We're going to do more questions, but Skate was in Portland earlier this week.
Yes.
Yeah, Portland, traveling. Mike was up all night with the draft, so I'm so thankful that they made time to be here. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.